My wicked mother banned me from bringing my kids to Christmas dinner, but my sister's children were invited. I don't want those brats near me. They ruin everything, she screamed at me mercilessly. So I decided to take revenge by freezing her credit cards. Seconds later, she started shaking with panic. No one truly understands how a mother can despise her own child until they hear it for themselves. Jasmine Rhodes was 36 years old and had the kindest heart imaginable. She was a single mother to two little ones, Ethan, who was 8, and Chloe, 5, raising them with love, effort, and a sweetness that could disarm the toughest person. She worked as a freelance graphic designer from home, and while she wasn't swimming in money, their apartment was filled with laughter, drawings taped to the walls, and genuine hugs. This December 23rd, everything seemed perfect. Jasmine was stringing up lights with Ethan and Chloe, while soft Christmas music played in the background. The living room smelled like freshly baked cookies and cinnamon sticks. On their dining table was a box of Christmas ornaments she carefully stored away every year, treating them like precious family jewels. "Mommy, do you think Grandma will have presents for us this year?" Chloe asked with a hopeful smile, clutching a gold star. Jasmine paused for a few seconds before answering. She didn't want to lie. Not again. "Presents aren't the important thing, sweetie. The important thing is that we'll be together." Ethan glanced at her out of the corner of his eye. At 8 years old, he had already learned to read between the lines. That was the same response he heard every holiday season. Jasmine swallowed hard and continued decorating with a fake smile. She wanted to believe this Christmas would be different, that her mother would finally open her heart, that her sister, Tasha, would stop looking down her nose at her, and that maybe they could all have dinner in peace. The phone rang just as Jasmine placed the star atop the tree. She looked at the screen. Mom. She felt a knot in her chest, took a deep breath, and answered. "Hello, Mom." The voice on the other end was immediate, dry, without warmth or courtesy. "Jasmine, I hope you don't plan on bringing your children tomorrow." The blood rushed to her stomach. Her hand started to tremble. "Excuse me? I thought we were all going to dinner." "Yes, you, but not them. I don't want those brats near me. They ruin everything. Your presence is enough. I shouldn't even have to invite you. Don't provoke me." The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. In the background, the children kept playing, unaware of the knife that had just been plunged into their mother's heart. Jasmine tried to stay composed, but her mother's voice kept slicing at her dignity. "They're noisy, messy, and spoiled, and I'm not going to put up with kids screaming while I try to have a decent family evening. Tasha's children are already coming, and that's more than enough." "Tasha's children are invited?" Jasmine asked, feeling the air escape her lungs. "Of course. They know how to behave. They aren't like your little savages." Jasmine closed her eyes. Everything flashed through her mind. The forgotten birthdays, the gifts that never arrived, the contemptuous looks, the dismissals disguised as demands. And right there, in that instant, she knew something inside her had died. "All right," she said quietly, her throat tight. "I hope so. And don't you dare show up unannounced. Understood?" The call ended without a goodbye. Jasmine stood there, phone still in hand, as if waiting for someone to deny what she had just heard. Chloe approached and tugged on her sweater. "Was that Grandma?" Jasmine nodded, trying to smile. "Are we going tomorrow?" The lie burned on her tongue. "No, honey. It looks like she changed her plans." Ethan crossed his arms, saying nothing. His eyes said it all. Hours later, with the kids asleep, Jasmine sat down at her computer. She opened the administrative panel for her mother's bank accounts. For years, she had managed a portion of her mother's finances, an old promise she had made to her father before he died. Her mother didn't know the full extent, but she did know that without those cards, she was lost. Jasmine stared at the screen, hesitated for a second, and then, with a single click, blocked access to the credit cards, all of them, not for revenge, but for dignity. That same night, across town, Jasmine's mother tried to make an online purchase. Error. Then she tried to withdraw cash. Transaction failed. Her face, previously haughty, twisted into confusion. She checked her purse, pulling out other cards, all useless. Desperate, she tried calling the bank. The operator informed her the account had been restricted by the primary holder. "This is robbery! You can't do this to me!" she yelled with childish fury. But no one responded the way she wanted. In her icy mansion, surrounded by unnecessary luxury and family photos she never looked at, she began to tremble. The security she felt from being in control was crumbling brick by brick. Meanwhile, Tasha was at her own house decorating her huge Christmas tree with her 2 children. Dinner was still being held at the family estate. Tasha had everything, or so she thought: money, acceptance, prestige. But she didn't have the one thing that hurt the most to lack: peace. The next day was fraught with tension. Jasmine prepared a special breakfast for her children and told them they would have their own Christmas dinner, just the 3 of them. "We aren't seeing Aunt Tasha?" Ethan asked, stirring his hot chocolate. "Not this year. We're going to celebrate right here together. How about dinner in our pajamas, movies, and holiday sweet rolls?" Chloe applauded. Ethan just nodded with a weary smile. At the Rhodes estate, their mother tried to mask her desperation. She pretended everything was under control, but her face was paler than usual. She called Tasha. "Something strange is happening. The accounts aren't working. Someone is doing this to me. I know it." "What are you talking about, Mom? Who would do something like that?" "Her. Jasmine. I knew it. This is her revenge. She wants to ruin Christmas." Tasha took a deep breath. She didn't want any more conflict. "Did you do something to her, Mom?" "Of course not. I just told her not to bring those kids, that's all." "Mom, how do you think that went over? Do you even hear yourself? They aren't ours. They never were. They never fit in." The phrase hung in the air. Tasha frowned. "What do you mean they never were?" Her mother hung up. Tasha, uneasy, called Jasmine. No answer. Minutes later, their mother began experiencing a strange episode. Her breathing quickened. Her hands shook. She leaned on the wall, then the table, until she fell to her knees. Tasha arrived just in time to see her on the floor, pale, shaking, her eyes wide with terror. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Someone is doing something to me! They're robbing me!" she screamed, trying to get up. "Who's robbing you?" "Her! Jasmine! Her! Tasha embraced her, confused and scared, while dialing 911. That night, while a humble apartment celebrated with laughter, drawings, and hugs, a luxurious mansion experienced the beginning of a hell no one was prepared to face. And that was only the start. Christmas morning arrived with an odd silence hanging over the Rhodes house. The enormous residence, located in an exclusive neighborhood, seemed to be wrapped in a cold distinct from the weather. It wasn't the winter chill that permeated the air, but the tense atmosphere, the unspoken truth everyone sensed. Jasmine's mother remained in her room, using the excuse of a bad fall that she claimed affected her hip. The official version, which spread through the neighborhood, was that of a domestic accident, a slip in the kitchen. Tasha repeated the story accurately to every visitor and caller, with an impeccable smile and rehearsed naturalness. "Mom's fine. It was just a scare. You know, age. That marble floor is a hazard. Luckily, it wasn't serious." But her voice and gestures lacked their usual firmness. Her makeup concealed the dark circles under her eyes, but not the doubt starting to grow in her gaze. Something about the whole situation didn't make sense. Her mother wasn't a woman who broke down easily. Seeing her scream Jasmine's name the night before, eyes wide, shaking like a child, had left a bitter taste in Tasha's stomach. Jasmine, for her part, tried to return to her routine, although nothing within her was routine anymore. She had spent Christmas Eve eating holiday sweet rolls in her pajamas with her children, watching animated movies, and hiding the urge to cry. She had laughed. She had tried hard to maintain the illusion. But when the children fell asleep, she sat silently on the sofa, the tree lights blinking like a cruel joke. No one had called her. No message, no Merry Christmas. Her mother had removed her from the family group chat. Tasha, as always, had stayed neutral, an observer, a passive accomplice to a story that held too many chapters of injustice. That morning, Jasmine went to a neighborhood cafe to meet Maya, her best friend since college. Maya already knew something serious had happened. "Your eyes are swollen," Maya said as soon as she saw her. "I didn't sleep well," Jasmine replied, knowing the lie was obvious. They sat at a corner table. Jasmine took a deep breath, her voice breaking. "Do you know what she told me? She didn't want my kids at dinner. She said they'd ruin it." "Your mother said that? In those exact words?" "And she said it like it was the most logical thing, like she had the right to discriminate against my kids. What kind of person does that?" Maya remained silent, knowing the question didn't need an answer. Jasmine looked away, staring out the window. "And it's not the first time, Maya. She spent years belittling me, humiliating me. You know how it was. Always the wrong daughter, always the one who didn't fit in. But I've had enough. Last night I blocked all her credit cards." Maya looked up in surprise. "You had access to that?" Jasmine nodded. "Since Dad died, he asked me to. He wanted to make sure she didn't squander everything, but of course she never knew. She never thanked me for anything. She never asked how I kept paying for her queenly lifestyle. I've been doing it all these years, and she still treats me with contempt." Maya took her hand. She knew Jasmine's wounds were old, but this time they were bleeding differently. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Jasmine's mother was trying to contact old acquaintances, former bridge club friends, wealthy widows who lived off their inheritances, old colleagues of her late husband. No one responded as she expected. Some wished her a speedy recovery. Others simply didn't answer. Her social standing hadn't been what it used to be for a long time. Time, rumors, and small leaked truths had eroded her power, and she knew it. That's why her desperation grew, and why her rage toward Jasmine increased. She couldn't stand feeling vulnerable. She couldn't bear not having control. Tasha watched her from the doorway. Seeing her so agitated, so out of sorts, gave her an uneasy feeling. "Mom, why didn't you tell me Jasmine managed your accounts?" Her mother slowly turned her head. "Because it wasn't necessary." "But it is now. What happened? What did you do to her?" "Nothing. I just asked her not to bring her kids." "It was Christmas dinner, and her kids are your family, your grandchildren." "Don't disappoint me. You don't know what it's like to raise a daughter who was never truly a part of you." Tasha frowned. "What are you talking about?" Her mother got up with difficulty. She walked to the large window. The reflection of her own face seemed to show a truth she didn't want to see. "It's nothing, just a figure of speech." But Tasha wasn't so sure anymore. Something in that phrase had pierced her, as if a door had accidentally opened, revealing something that had been hidden for years. That night, Jasmine put her children to bed early. Then she sat at her desk. She wanted to work, but her mind wouldn't cooperate. She opened her email, checked notifications, nothing, until she noticed something in the physical mailbox near the door. An envelope with no return address, just her name written in elegant, delicate script. She opened it cautiously. It was a sheet of thick, scented paper folded into 3 parts. The handwriting was elegant, but shaky. "The truth you seek is in the attic, but you must be prepared." Jasmine read the sentence 3 times. She felt her heart pounding in her throat. Who had left it? What did it mean? The attic? Which attic? Then she remembered. The old family house, the back room, the attic her mother never allowed her to go up to. A place full of padlocked boxes, dust, and memories no one wanted to see. The note had no more information. No signature, no clue. She didn't sleep that night. She tossed and turned, thinking, fearing, wondering what it all meant. The truth about what? Her family? Herself? Meanwhile, someone was watching her. From a car parked across from the apartment building, a man in a dark coat and hat was taking notes in a notebook. He had a photograph of Jasmine, another of her mother, and a thick, half-open file. He didn't speak or move. He just watched, patiently. The next day, Tasha visited her mother again. She brought flowers, fresh juice, and a couple of scones. She feigned concern, but deep down she needed answers. "How are you feeling today?" "Better, but things still aren't working." What things? The accounts, the transfers, the cards. Nothing is working. They have me trapped. What if you talk to Jasmine? After what she did to me? And after what you said to her? Her mother fell silent. Mom, you said something strange yesterday about Jasmine never being a part of you. What did you mean? I was upset, that's all. Her mother stood up, annoyed. You don't understand. That child was always different. Even when she was small, she wasn't like you. She didn't talk the same. She didn't look the same. It was like she didn't belong to me. Didn't belong to you? The question hung in the air. Her mother slowly turned her head. What are you saying? Nothing. I'm just repeating your words. But the seed of doubt was already planted. Jasmine spent the day thinking about the envelope. At dusk, she went up to the building's roof. She needed air. From there, the city looked like a board of distant lights. She closed her eyes, trying to organize her thoughts. Then she heard a click. Someone was lighting a cigarette nearby. She turned her head. I didn't know anyone else came up here, she said. The man looked at her calmly. He wore dark, inconspicuous clothes. He looked around 50, with a weathered face and watchful eyes. I also didn't know Jasmine Rhodes lived here. She tensed, taking a step back. Who are you? The man smiled without malice. An old acquaintance of your family. Let's call me someone who knows things. What things? Enough to tell you that envelope wasn't a joke. The attic exists, and it's full of truths not everyone wants you to see. Who sent you? Let's just say there are people who believe you deserve to know. That's all. Before she could ask more, the man left. He walked down the stairs without looking back. Jasmine stood there, paralyzed. The game had begun, and there was no way to stop it now. Jasmine couldn't sleep that night. The image of the mysterious man on the rooftop stayed with her for hours, just like the note in her mailbox, which seemed to burn inside the envelope as if it had a life of its own. The phrase kept beating in her head. The truth you seek is in the attic, but you must be prepared. Prepared for what? How deep could a secret be that had been kept under wraps for decades? She found herself sitting in the kitchen at dawn with a cup of cold coffee in her hands, her eyes fixed on nothing. Her mind went over fragmented childhood memories, uncomfortable silences, looks that didn't match, screams that were avoided in public. One scene returned clearly. Her, as a child, running toward her mother with a drawing in her hands. Her mother barely looked at it. You were always different, Jasmine. Harder to love. She said it without anger, without even intending to, like someone tossing an inconvenient truth into the wind without measuring the damage it could cause. At 9 o'clock that morning, she dropped her children off at Maya's house. She didn't want to give too many explanations. She just asked for a few hours. Maya, seeing her, knew it wasn't the time to ask questions. Jasmine left with a small bag over her shoulder, without makeup, her hair tied in a low ponytail, her eyes dark, as if she hadn't closed them in days. In front of the old family house, her breathing became heavy. The gate was the same, with peeling paint and wrought iron decorations that had once been her mother's pride. She used the key she had kept on her keychain for years, although she hadn't entered since her father's death. The house was empty. Her mother was with Tasha that morning for a doctor's appointment. Fate, or whatever it was giving her the perfect opportunity. The silence of the place was so thick she could feel it on her skin. Every step she took on the wooden floor creaked like a warning. She didn't turn on the lights, moving straight to the back hallway. There was the ladder leading to the attic, hidden behind a small wooden door. She pushed it. It stuck. After a few minutes of forcing it, it gave way with a dry thump. A cloud of dust fell from the ceiling. She coughed, covering her mouth with her sweater sleeve, and climbed rung by rung, feeling the air grow denser with each step. Upstairs, the space was cramped, barely enough room to crouch down. The light entering was dim, filtered through a small, dirty window. Cobwebs hung like old curtains. The smell was a mix of dampness, ancient wood, and secrets. There were many boxes, some broken, others taped shut with yellow duct tape, old clothes, photo albums, out-of-date Christmas ornaments. Jasmine searched carefully until she saw a wooden box different from the others. It was smaller, with gold hardware and a rusted lock. She tried to open it, but it was jammed. She pulled hard. The clasp broke with a dry snap. Inside, everything was perfectly organized. There was a leather folder, several yellowed letters, loose photographs, and a clinical envelope with the name of a clinic she didn't recognize. The first thing she grabbed was a photograph. Her mother, young and elegant, next to Tasha as a baby, and an empty space on the right where another person should have been. The photo was clearly cut. Jasmine frowned and continued searching. Among the papers, she found an unsigned letter written in shaky handwriting. "If you ever read this, I want you to know that I loved you from the very first moment. I had no other choice. They wouldn't let me choose. I was just a girl, and they decided for me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I looked for you, but they told me you had gone far away. If you only knew how many times I dreamed of holding you, of explaining. They stole my life and yours too. Forgive me. Forgive me for giving you up." Jasmine's heart began to pound. Giving up? Who had written that? It wasn't her mother. The handwriting didn't match. No, this letter was from someone else. She folded it carefully and set it aside. She picked up the medical folder. It was thick. On the cover, St. Jude Behavioral Health Center, file number 045. Patient, Serena J. Her hands were trembling. She slowly turned the pages. They were clinical reports, diagnoses, anxiety attacks, dissociation episodes, escape attempts. In the final section, a summary. Patient presents with schizoaffective disorder. It is recommended that she have no contact with minors until prolonged treatment is completed. Referral, containment area. The last page had a date, December of 1989. Jasmine had been born that same year. Everything started spinning in her head. A suspicion hit her in the stomach. She searched desperately inside the box again. Under the documents, hidden between two envelopes, was a sonogram. On the back, a name written with faded marker, Serena Jenkins, 32 weeks, and then the photo, an old image with bent edges, a young woman with a sad gaze holding a baby wrapped in a white blanket. The woman's face wasn't familiar, but the baby was her. She knew it. She felt it deep in her soul. She held it with both hands. The air ran out of her lungs. Tears started to flow uncontrollably. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice broken. The silence of the attic engulfed her. The dust continued to fall as if the past had woken up. She stayed there, sitting on the wooden floor, her eyes fixed on the image of that woman, trying to piece together a puzzle she didn't know existed. For years, she had felt like she didn't fit in, that she didn't belong to this family. Now she was beginning to understand why. She went downstairs with the box in her arms, her movements slow, as if carrying something sacred. In the living room, she sat on the old leather sofa, the same one her father used to fall asleep on while watching television. She looked around. Everything was the same. The heavy curtains, the luxurious furniture, the family photos framed in silver. But none of it belonged to her. She picked up the phone and dialed Tasha. "Where are you?" "At the hospital with Mom. Why?" "I need to talk to you today. Are you okay?" Jasmine hesitated for a second. "Stop by my house in an hour." When she hung up, Jasmine looked at the photograph again. That woman had the same eyes as her, the same expression when she was sad, the same gesture when embracing. It was impossible for it all to be a coincidence. At Tasha's house, the atmosphere was different. Less luxurious, more modern, but just as cold. Her children were playing a video game in the next room. Tasha was preparing coffee when Jasmine arrived. They didn't exchange hugs, only tense looks. "What's going on?" Tasha asked, setting the mug on the table. Jasmine took out the photo and placed it in front of her. "Do you know her?" Tasha looked at it, confused. "No. Have you ever seen her?" "No. Who is it?" Jasmine set the letter and then the medical folder beside it. "This was in the attic." Tasha read in silence. The expression on her face changed with every line. When she finished, she sank into the chair. "Are you saying that Mom... that she's not your mother?" I don't know, but someone gave me up, and Mom knew. She hid everything. Tasha covered her mouth with her hands. It wasn't an act. She was genuinely shocked. I always suspected something was weird. Mom never treated you like she treated me. She was always harder on you, more distant, but I never thought it was this. Did you know? No, I swear I didn't. If I had known, I would have told you. Jasmine was silent. Her gaze was a whirlwind of emotions. What do we do now? Tasha stood up, walked over to a bookshelf, and pulled out a box of photos. She placed it on the table and started going through them. After a few minutes, she found one that caught her attention. It was an old party, many guests, a woman in the background who looked familiar. Look, she said, pointing to the figure. It's her. Jasmine took the photo. She moved closer. It was blurry, but yes, it was the same woman. She was at a Rhodes family party. How did she get there? I don't know, but this confirms something. She was close by. A chill ran down Jasmine's spine. The man's voice on the rooftop echoed in her head. The attic is full of truths not everyone wants you to see. She took the photo, the letter, the sonogram, and the file. She put them in her bag. I'm going to find her, or her story. I don't care what it costs. Tasha didn't answer. She just watched her leave. The door closed, and the truth was only just beginning to show its real face. The sun was setting over the city's rooftops, but inside the house, the cold was different. It had nothing to do with the weather. It was an emotional cold, the kind that sinks into your skin and can't be removed with blankets or heat. Jasmine paced back and forth, the medical file still in her bag, and the photo of the woman who might be her biological mother, the one holding her in her arms with a tenderness she never saw in the face of the woman who raised her. Each step brought her closer to the abyss of the unknown. She knew there was no going back. She knew she would soon have to look her mother in the eye and ask. Not to ask permission, not to seek affection, but simply to demand the truth. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Tasha called her early. Mom is collapsing again. She's home. The doctor is coming this afternoon. If you're going to say something, do it now. Jasmine didn't reply immediately. She heard the traffic noise on the line. Her sisters held breath, the weight of unsaid words. I'll be there, she finally answered. That house, the one she grew up in, no longer felt like hers. The structure was the same, but everything inside had changed. Or maybe it was never what she thought. She found her sitting in her usual armchair, the wool blanket over her legs, her eyes fixed on the blank television screen. Hearing the door, she barely turned her head. So you finally deigned to come, she said hoarsely. Jasmine approached slowly. Her mother looked at her as if evaluating an intruder. I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you. Well, I do. Jasmine sat opposite her, placing her bag on her lap. She opened it and took out the photo. First, she held it up. Who is this? Her mother looked at her without blinking. For a few seconds, she seemed confused. Then her face changed. Where did you find that? In the attic, among your things? Who is she? You have no right. Who is she? Jasmine insisted, her eyes welling up. She's nobody. Then why does she have my face? Why is she holding me? Her mother took a deep breath. Her jaw was trembling. That woman is dead. Don't talk about things you don't understand. Was she my mother? The word hung in the air. The woman got up with difficulty. The blanket fell to the floor. I'll disinherit you, do you hear me? If you keep digging, I'll cut you out of everything. Jasmine looked at her with unshakable calm. I was never a part of that. Never your real heir. Her mother pressed her lips together. She stumbled a little, but didn't give in. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what happened. Then tell me. I don't have to justify myself to you. Jasmine stood up. Why do you hate me so much? Why did you raise me if you didn't want to? The woman started to cry, but it wasn't a cry of regret. It was a cry full of fury and shame. Because it was an obligation. Because nobody asked me if I wanted another daughter. Because you showed up one day and your father imposed you on me. And you know what? He loved you more than us. It was always obvious. That's why Tasha hates you. That's why I looked down on you. Because you arrived and displaced us all." The words fell like stones onto Jasmine's chest. Rage rose from her stomach, but something else dominated her. Sadness. A sadness so old she didn't know if it was hers or if she had inherited it. "So it's true," she finally said. "I'm not your daughter." "You weren't, but you became a burden I never wanted to carry." Jasmine nodded slowly, put the photo away, and said nothing more. She walked out the door, her eyes full of held-back tears. Tasha was in the kitchen, pretending not to listen, but her face was as white as marble. "Did you know all that?" "No," she said. "But Mom always left clues. I was her pride. You were her shadow. Is that why you ignored me too?" Tasha looked at her fiercely. "Because you won Dad over. He protected you. He only demanded excellence from me. And that hurt you?" It broke my heart. They were both silent. There was so much accumulated pain that words were hardly enough. "Tasha, what else did they hide from me?" Tasha crossed her arms. "I don't know everything, but Mom had a man who came to see her in secret years ago, after Dad died. She called him the archivist." "Did you meet him?" "No, I only saw him once. He had a briefcase. Mom always gave him envelopes and cash." Jasmine remembered the man on the rooftop, the same one who had watched her from the car, the same one who told her the attic held secrets. It was him. That night, while checking her emails, she received a strange notification. A direct message to her personal account. No name, no sender. Clear. "I'm ready to hand over what you were always denied. I'll wait for you tomorrow at 6 o'clock at the cafe on Liberty Avenue." Jasmine didn't know if she should go, but fear no longer stopped her. Doubt was heavier than any truth. The next day, she arrived promptly. The cafe was half empty. A man was sitting alone at a table by the window. It was him. He wore the same coat, the same hat. The briefcase was on the table. Jasmine approached, controlling the trembling in her hands. "Are you the archivist?" "That depends on who's asking. I'm Jasmine, the daughter, or whatever I am." The man offered her a seat. Then he calmly opened the briefcase, pulled out a thick envelope, and slid it toward her. "Your mother hired me more than 30 years ago. She paid me to eliminate every trace of a young woman named Serena Jenkins, but I never fully succeeded. Some things survived, like you." Jasmine took the envelope. Inside were copies of documents, photographs, court reports. Serena was a minor when she became pregnant. Her parents tried to force her to give the baby up for adoption. She resisted. She was admitted to a private clinic for emotional instability. That's where Jasmine was born, and that's where she was separated from her mother. Your biological father was a lawyer who worked for the Rhodes family. He never acknowledged paternity, but he was close to the man who raised you. An agreement was reached, a silent adoption, all outside official records. And Serena? She escaped years later. She lived on the streets. No one looked for her. She died in a public hospital. She had schizophrenia, but she asked for you until the very end. Jasmine felt her whole body shatter into pieces. Every word the man spoke was a bullet to her soul. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because I have nothing left to lose, and you deserve to know everything." The man stood up, left a card with a number. "When you're ready, I have more, but only if you want to continue." Jasmine was left alone with the envelope in her hands. She didn't sleep that night. She sat in front of an empty box. Inside, she placed all the evidence, the letters, the photos. She closed it and wrote one word on the lid. Truth. Because that truth finally had a name, a face, and it could no longer be ignored. Jasmine sat in front of the box containing her origin as one sits before an altar. There was no incense or prayer, but there was the sacred weight of an entire life built upon a lie, polished carefully over years. Serena Jenkins. That name, which until recently was just ink on paper, now echoed like a familiar sound in her mind. The photo, the letters, the medical reports, the file handed over by the archivist. Everything fit with surgical precision, and at the same time, everything hurt. The blood running through her veins was not that of the Rhodes. It never was. She decided she couldn't carry this truth alone any longer. This time, she wasn't going to leave without confronting the woman who had looked at her with contempt for more than 30 years, without telling her she was an intruder in her own history. This same woman who had denied her a childhood, who compared her existence to her nephew's as if she were a calculation error. This woman who had raised her, yes, but without tenderness, without patience, without love. This woman who always made her feel like a burden. Upon arriving at the family home, she found her in the living room, dressed as always, elegant even for sitting down to tea by the window. Her face was rigid, her gaze distant, as if the passage of time hadn't touched her skin but had hardened her soul. Jasmine stood directly in front of her without speaking. It was enough to open the box and place it on the table like someone dropping a silent grenade. Her mother took several seconds to react, her eyes fixed on Serena's photo, on the folded letters, on the clinical file. Then she raised her gaze to Jasmine. "So you found out," she said with a rough voice, without surprise. Jasmine nodded, not looking away. "Since I can remember, you made me feel like an intruder. Now I know why. You never saw me as yours." "Because you weren't," her mother replied, dropping the words with cold cruelty. "I didn't ask you to come. I didn't look for you. You arrived, and your father forced me to accept you." Jasmine felt the air in her lungs thicken. "Forced you?" Serena was a burden, a sick girl, without a family, with a pregnancy that threatened to ruin everything. Your father worked with her family's lawyer. When she was admitted, the baby was left helpless. And he said the right thing to do was to raise you as our daughter, because it was humane, he said. Humanity, he called it. I called it weakness. He was the one who saved her, and he was the one who brought that shame into our house. And then he looked at you as if you were a jewel. For you, all you had to do was breathe for him to adore you, while he demanded excellence from Tasha. Do you know what it was like to live with that? Jasmine stood still, swallowing rage and tears. And do you know what it was like to grow up here? To feel less than? To not understand why you hated me? Why you never touched me the way a mother touches her daughter? Because you were the biggest mistake of my life. The phrase crashed against Jasmine's chest like an axe. You were the shadow of everything I wanted to forget, of everything I hated about your father, his betrayal, his false compassion. And now you come to ask me what? Forgiveness? Acceptance? I have nothing for you. Nothing. Jasmine closed the box and stood up. Her voice was low, broken, trembling. I didn't come to ask you for anything. I just wanted to hear it from you so I could leave without guilt. The woman didn't reply. She didn't even look at her as she walked away. Tasha was in the hallway. She had heard everything. She didn't try to stop her, just walked her to the door. Did you know all that? Jasmine asked. No, she said. But now everything makes sense. Mom was never the same after you arrived. I thought it was jealousy, but it was hate. A hate she hid behind elegance and perfect dinners. Dad loved me, right? Tasha lowered her gaze. He adored you, more than me, and I knew it. That's why I subconsciously distanced myself from you. I couldn't compete with your silence, with your pain. I just wanted to be enough for him, and you were just by existing. Jasmine stroked her arm. For the first time, there was no resentment between them, only shared pain. I'm going to look for Serena, Jasmine said. Where? Wherever this truth takes me. Tasha nodded silently. The archivist had left her a clue. In one of the reports, the name of the last institution where Serena was seen appeared. St. Anthony's Resource Center, a public residence for women without resources located on the city's outskirts. Jasmine went the next day. The building was gray with rusted bars and peeling walls. When she entered, the smell of disinfectant and old sadness enveloped her like a damp blanket. She asked for Serena. The nurse who assisted her, an older woman with a kind face, frowned when she heard the name. Jenkins. Yes, she was here a few years ago. She was very sweet, though sometimes her mind wandered. She always said she had a daughter. She always talked about her baby. She would cry for her. Jasmine felt her legs weaken. Where is she now? The nurse lowered her gaze. She passed away 2 years ago. She had heart problems. She died peacefully, alone, but at peace. Jasmine covered her mouth. The cry came out muffled. 2 years, 2 miserable years separated her life from a reunion. Her real mother had been within reach of her hands, and now she was gone. The nurse took her hand. She asked me that if someone ever came asking for her, I should give them this. She took a small box of light-colored wood. Inside was a letter written in shaky, childlike handwriting. Jasmine opened it carefully. My daughter, even if you never acknowledge me, I always loved you. They wouldn't let me have you. They tore my life apart when they took you from my arms. I was never well after that. But every night I spoke to you in silence, imagining you were thinking of me too. I wish I could have held you once, just once. I don't know if you'll ever look for me, but if you do, I want you to know it wasn't my choice. I waited for you until the end. Jasmine closed her eyes. Tears rolled without permission. She sat on a bench in the hallway, the letter pressed against her chest. There was no body to hug. There was no fresh grave, only a broken story, a stolen childhood, a motherhood taken away by silence, by greed, by the need to appear perfect. Blood doesn't always unite, but sometimes souls do. That night, Jasmine brought flowers to a forgotten cemetery in a humble area. She asked for the name in the registry, Serena Jenkins, Lot 17, Row 9, a grave without a headstone, just a number. She left the flowers, lit a candle, took out a sheet of paper, and wrote her own letter. Mom, I don't know how to start. They took me from your arms before I could know you, and they took you from mine before I could search for you. I was raised without love, but your absence felt like a presence. Now I understand why. You lived thinking of me, and I grew up feeling you without knowing you existed. We didn't get to hug, but this letter is a hug. I found you, and I will never forget you. Rest in peace, Mom. Your daughter, Jasmine. She left it on the dirt next to the candle and walked away in silence. And for the first time, she felt like she wasn't alone anymore. Jasmine walked through the cemetery with red-rimmed eyes, the letter from her biological mother still throbbing in her hands. The cold wind ruffled her hair, but she didn't shiver. She had crossed a threshold from which there was no turning back. Her story was no longer that of a rejected daughter or a woman broken inside. Now it was the story of a revealed truth, and although it hurt, it finally belonged to her. She returned home without speaking to anyone. She crawled into bed with her clothes on and hugged her children while they slept. Ethan opened his eyes just a little. Are you okay, Mom? She hugged him tighter. I am now, honey. I am now. Christmas was just days away. In other years, that date caused her anxiety. The comparisons, the silences, the distance from her sister, the looks from her mother that stripped her bare with contempt without needing words. But this time would be different. She would no longer go as the submissive daughter hoping for a smile. She was going to walk through that door with her head held high, with her history in her skin, with her children by her side, not out of obligation, but for closure. Maya, her best friend, showed up that morning with a container full of cookies. Are you really going? Jasmine nodded without hesitation. Not for them, for me. I don't want my children to grow up without seeing that their mother had the courage to face her story. I need them to see me take my place at that table, not as a guest, but as someone who deserves to be there. Maya looked at her with a mix of admiration and worry. What if they hurt you again? They can't hurt what's already healed. The afternoon of the 24th was calm. Jasmine and her children wrapped gifts, baked cookies, played carols, and decorated with colored lights that blinked as if the world were a kind place. At 6 o'clock, they dressed carefully. Ethan wore a white button-down shirt with a blue tie, and Chloe chose a dress with embroidered flowers. Jasmine did her hair simply and wore the same necklace her father had given her for her 15th birthday. She didn't need anything more. Her greatest adornment was her reclaimed dignity. The Rhodes residence had its lights on early. From afar, the Christmas glow seemed to announce a night of celebration, but Jasmine knew the real storm had yet to break. She rang the doorbell with the children by her side. A housekeeper opened the door and looked at her with surprise. "Good evening," Jasmine said serenely. "We're here for dinner." Tasha appeared in the foyer seconds later. She stood motionless. The tension was evident, but her eyes held a mix of nervousness and relief. "Are you sure you want to come in?" "I'm sure I don't want to leave." Tasha opened the door completely. The children went in first. Jasmine followed without looking back. In the living room, decorated with gold lights and a giant artificial tree that looked more like a magazine photo than a home, her mother was sitting, as always, in her wine-colored dress, her face perfectly made up, her hands in her lap. Seeing her, she didn't say a word. She looked at her with a neutral, almost empty expression. "I thought we made this clear," she said coldly. "You made it clear," Jasmine replied. "I never spoke." Tasha nervously poured wine into the glasses while the other guests took their places. A distant aunt, a cousin who talked too much, Tasha's children dressed as if for a photo shoot. The atmosphere was filled with false cordiality. No one mentioned the presence of Jasmine or her children, but the look said everything. The dinner began with empty toasts and uncomfortable smiles. Jasmine carved the turkey without waiting for it to be offered. She served her children, eating in silence. She listened to stray comments about the economy, politics, and social gossip until her mother spoke. "Tasha, you should tell everyone the good news about the beach house." Tasha swallowed and smiled without enthusiasm. "It's not confirmed yet." "Of course it is. If that wretch doesn't show up, it's yours. You have the right." Jasmine looked up. "The right to what?" Her mother ignored her, continuing to drink wine as if she hadn't spoken. Jasmine put her fork down on the plate. "Why don't we talk about something else?" The others tensed. "What do you want to talk about, Jasmine?" her mother asked without looking at her. "The truth, about what this family has been hiding for more than 30 years. The silence was immediate. The only sound was the absurd, out-of-place Christmas music in the background. "Tonight isn't the time for drama," a cousin said, trying to break the tension. Jasmine stood up. "For me, it's the perfect time, because my entire life you made me feel like I didn't belong, and now I know why." Tasha set her glass on the table. She knew what was coming. "I am not this woman's biological daughter," Jasmine said, her voice firm. "I was secretly adopted. My mother, Serena Jenkins, was institutionalized by order of a wealthy family who couldn't handle the shame of a pregnant daughter with mental health issues. I was taken from her arms at birth. I was brought to this house as a favor, as a debt, as a mistake that was never forgiven." The aunt dropped her silverware. A murmur went around the table. Her mother didn't flinch. "That is not a matter for dinner conversation," she said, without raising her voice. "Yes, it is. Because for years you denied me the right to know who I was. And you," looking directly at her, "made me believe I wasn't good enough. You treated me like a burden, like an intruder. You never hugged me. You never told me you loved me. Now I understand why." Tasha stood up. "It's true," she said with a trembling voice. "Jasmine found out everything. I helped her. Mom, why did you hide it for so long?" Her mother took a deep breath. "Because it didn't deserve to be known. Because some things are better left buried." "Even people?" Jasmine asked. The woman's eyes welled up. For an instant, the makeup failed to conceal her fragility. "Your father forced me. I didn't want to. And he loved you," she whispered. "And he stopped loving me because of you. He tore everything that was mine away and gave it to you." "I was a baby," Jasmine said, her voice breaking. "It wasn't my fault." "But you were my punishment." A glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. The woman tried to stand up, but her body trembled. She clung to the edge of the table. Tasha ran to support her. Her mother collapsed back into the chair, eyes rolled back, her breathing shallow. "Call 911!" Tasha yelled. Jasmine knelt in front of her. Her mother could barely keep her eyes open. "Mom, look at me. I'm here." "Don't call me that," the woman whispered. "You're not my daughter." Jasmine took her hand. "Maybe I'm not, but you raised me with your hatred, with your silence, and I survived." The ambulance arrived in minutes. They carried her mother out on a stretcher. Before they loaded her, Jasmine leaned close to her ear. "I forgive you. Not for you, but for me." And as the door closed, Jasmine felt something she had never felt in that house: freedom. The ambulance drove away with her mother inside, wrapped in the blare of the siren and the sound of tires on the asphalt. The red lights faded into the night like a sign of something that had no return. Jasmine remained on the threshold for several more seconds, looking straight ahead without moving, the children clinging to her sides, her heart beating with a strange peace that came not from happiness, but from relief. The cycle was closed. The Rhodes house fell into an uncomfortable silence. The guests began to leave with apologies squeezed between their teeth, unsure if they were lamenting the situation or just trying to get away from the emotional weight they had just witnessed. Tasha didn't say a word. She sat at the table, staring at the remnants of the turkey and the half-melted candles as if they were the ruins of a dinner that never truly happened. Jasmine approached her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I wish you peace, Tasha. I really do." Tasha didn't respond, only nodded very slightly, without lifting her gaze. Her eyes were shiny, but not with compassion. It was something else. Pain, perhaps confusion, jealousy, who knows? Silence also had multiple meanings, and in that moment, neither of them wanted to decipher it. 3 weeks passed. Jasmine's mother was still alive, though unrecognizable. The diagnosis was clear: a severe stroke caused by the emotional collapse she suffered at dinner. Her right side was paralyzed, her speech impaired. She spent her days in a private hospital bed with a dim face, her eyes lost between the present and a past that seemed to dissolve like ink in the rain. Jasmine went to see her on the 3rd day, alone. Then she went back with her children and continued to do so week after week, not out of duty, not out of nostalgia, but because she knew that if she didn't properly close every wound, her history would repeat itself in them. She wouldn't allow it. Chloe usually brought her crayon drawings of flowers. Ethan stood by the door, observing in silence. Her mother looked at them as if they were shadows. Sometimes she squeezed Jasmine's hand without saying anything. There were no words, but there was presence. "Hi, Mom," Jasmine said sweetly, as if the woman in front of her wasn't the same one who had denied her everything for 3 decades. She combed her hair, put on perfume, talked to her about simple things, and before leaving, she left a notebook on the nightstand where every day she wrote a fragment of her story, a part of her truth. Tasha didn't return. She called the clinic once a week just to find out if her mother was still alive. She didn't ask about Jasmine or the children. She was dealing with her own ruins. Her husband had officially left. Debts surrounded her like vultures. The beach house sold in silence. Appearances had finally given way to reality. Meanwhile, Jasmine began to rebuild herself from a different place. She used the nights to write. Every line was a liberation. She remembered the coldness of her childhood, the absent tenderness, the strange looks. She remembered the silence, especially that long, dense silence, full of unspoken truths that had followed her like a faithful shadow. She titled it "The Price of Silence." She wrote not to blame, but to understand, to prevent others from living the same. Her story wasn't unique. There were thousands like hers, invisible, silenced by fear, by shame, by obedience. She knew she had to speak, to scream if necessary, and that's what she did. When she finished the first draft, she shared it with Maya. Her friend read it with tears in her eyes. "You have to publish this. Not as a novel, as a testimony. This could save lives, Jasmine. Jasmine hesitated, but she did it. Months later, a nonprofit organization contacted her. They had read her story on a blog that Maya had shared without telling her. It was an NGO dedicated to supporting women with mental health disorders who had been separated from their children by the system. They sought to raise awareness of these cases, generate support, and dismantle prejudices. "Your story represents thousands of silenced cries," they told her. "We want you to share it." Jasmine accepted. She gave talks, participated in meetings. Her story began to resonate on social media, in small circles, in forgotten communities. People wrote to her, telling their own experiences. Women thanked her for saying out loud what they didn't even dare to think. The pain stopped being a punishment. It became a bridge. One day at an open talk, a woman in the audience approached her after the conference. "You're Jasmine, right?" "Yes." The woman introduced herself as Clara. She was a retired nurse. She had worked at the clinic where Jasmine was born. "I knew your mother, Serena. She was very young. She always said she loved you. She never stopped talking about you." Jasmine hugged her without asking permission. They cried together without saying anything more. She returned to the cemetery with her children. She showed them Serena's grave. "The woman who gave me life rests here." Chloe placed a flower. Ethan left a handwritten letter. "Was she our grandma?" he asked. "Yes, my love, and even though I didn't meet her, I know she loved me more than anyone in this life." Getting back into the car, Jasmine looked up at the sky. There were no clouds, only a clean clarity, as if the universe had decided to grant her a little peace. That night, as she tucked her children in, she told them a made-up story. It was about a girl who had been born in darkness, but one day decided to turn on her own light. She didn't need to be accepted. She wasn't waiting for permission. She just wanted to be free. Ethan asked, "And what happened to the girl?" "She became the woman she was meant to be. Not perfect, but free." Before sleeping, she sat at her desk and wrote the last sentence of her book. "Sometimes love doesn't come from whom we expect it to, but it is always present, hidden in the most invisible corners of the human soul." And that night, for the first time in her life, she slept without fear. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.